We're joined this afternoon by Ryan Burrell, the president and founder and chief pollster for Spry Strategies, who has just conducted a special poll for Carolina Journal of unaffiliated voters in North Carolina. Ryan, talk to us about that and what you found and what your impressions were.
Thank you, Dallas. Yeah, this is a very unusual poll. Traditionally, people will poll, an entire likely voter electorate and run a crosstab of a small sample of unaffiliateds, which, increases the error margin on the sample as a whole because you're taking a smaller sample out for the analysis. So we wanted to do a sample that was double screened and dedicated only to independent voters to get their pulse with the issues that are going on today. And I think we've got a fantastic poll, some very interesting data.
So we'll start with this poll was taken, some of the poll was taken before the fall of Kabul, some after. According to your poll results, President Biden was already slipping and somewhat underwater with unaffiliates in North Carolina. And then, of course, it got tremendously worse.
That's right. And, when I look at the analysis for our sample after the debacle in Afghanistan, there was about a 7-point steeper drop than when you just isolate that set of interviews from approval that was already slipping drastically. I know that we did a survey, I guess a couple of months back, and I've done several in North Carolina since then, and it's been on a steady decline. There's been no increase, no issue out of the presidency, the administration that has bumped it up. It's been on a sharp decline.
And what is his overall approval and disapproval among unaffiliates right now?
So what we had is strongly approve at 26.4, somewhat approve 17.5, somewhat disapprove 10.6, strongly disapprove 44.2, and then unsure no opinion at 1.3. And you can see the disparity between strongly approve and strongly disapprove. 26.4 strongly approve, 44.2 strongly disapprove. Well, if you looked at it about 4 or 5 months ago, the strongly approve and the strongly disapprove were about even. His approval rating was, ranging from 52 to 54%. And just, whether it be the border crisis or, the handling of COVID, loss of civil liberties, the administration continues to step on the toes of the registered independent electorate in North Carolina.
Yeah, so the overall disapprove is in the 50s.
The overall disapproval is at 54.8%.
That puts the president well underwater pretty early in his administration. And with the issue in Afghanistan, it looks like will continue for a while. The president looks like he will stay underwater in North Carolina for the considerable future.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And there isn't anything in the agenda that I think brings hope right now to the electorate. When we get down a little further into the issues, we'll see that the deck is stacked against his agenda for the remainder of this year, heading into the midterms.
So the unaffiliated voters in North Carolina still have an overall positive view of Governor Cooper, but we've seen some slippage there. In Civitas's separate poll, we saw some slippage there. So it seems like Biden is already starting to bring other Democrats down. You did a fascinating part of the poll that asked unaffiliated voters, since January, have they found themselves leaning more to the left or more to the right? The vast majority say they are moving more to the right. Tell us about that.
Yeah, what we wanted to do is just, quickly gauge where the electorate is moving with a unique question. And we have to the left at 18.2, to the right at 38.0, almost 3-1 difference, with no change being at 43.9. When you think about the independents leaning slightly to the right in North Carolina, this is a big jump. Uh, Certainly advantage Republicans on this one.
And you asked them why. You asked why more people were leaning to the right.
That's right. We did a tree here, and one of the fun things about writing the script is coming up with these responses. And so more to the left response, we had the BLM movement at 10.9, which is, it blows you away that almost 11% of these independents are favorable with the BLM movement. COVID-19 related issues, 25.5. This would normally be considered a strength with Biden, but as we can see, he's bungling the vaccine strategy and everything else that he promised the public, that he was going to do better than Trump. Donald Trump's continued dominance on the right, 52.7%. And I think this is where you really see a big problem for Biden. The excitement is dismal for him, and the left is even the independent left are still obsessed with Donald Trump's dominance of the Republican Party, which is still pretty strong.
So Ryan, in your poll, you found out that far more people that identify as unaffiliated say they are leaning more to the right since January than unaffiliates are leaning to the left. Let's start with the smaller percentage, which is about 17 or 18% of unaffiliates say they are leaning more to the left. And almost all of that is driven by the answer because President Trump, former President Trump, continues to dominate the right. Do I have that right?
That's right. Yep. Trump's dominance accounted for 52.7% of those folks moving further to the left. And it's almost a 3-1 margin with folks leaning to the right at 38.7%.
Yeah, so just to be clear, about 3-1 voters say they are leaning more to the right. But of those who say they are leaning more to the left, it is all because they dislike Donald Trump.
That's right.
Correct?
That is correct.
And okay, so the vast majority, or the plurality in the poll of unaffiliates, find themselves leaning more to the right since January. And what are the reasons they pick?
Yeah, this is where I see a major problem for Biden heading into the midterms and in the Democratic candidates as a whole, because we have a whole litany of issues that have over 10%, starting with immigration crisis at 30.4, loss of civil liberties 13.0, America First policies 4.3, rising crime and violence 10.4, out of control government spending 17.4, wokeism and cancel culture 18.3, and anti-gun control measures at 6.1.
I think the easy way to sum that up is the vast majority of unaffiliates who say they have changed their leanings since January are leaning to the right, and they're leaning to the right basically because of different parts of the Democrat agenda, just straight up different things they are doing.
That's right. Exactly.
Let's go to the question of spending. We have a couple questions in there. where unaffiliated voters are clearly concerned about inflation, about the rate of spending that is going on in the country.
Yeah, that's right. And, obviously, at the Afghanistan issue has kind of overshadowed this looming infrastructure uh, legislation that the Biden administration is getting a lot of pushback from the moderate Democrats. And I think they're a little bit worried about putting their name on a legacy of, what many Republicans think is the beginning of the Green New Deal. And, Democrats obviously not as worried about the government spending as Republicans, certainly, but I think everybody's got it in the back of their mind when they're sitting at the dinner table.
You've done a number of polls on this issue. It seems to me the Biden people may have miscalculated in the sense that if you poll people, they will tell you, sure, I'm in favor of building bridges, I'm in favor of building roads, but that doesn't speak to the degree and the level of support they have for it, as opposed to they seem to have real serious concern about inflation and out of growth spending.
That's
so
right.
It seems like you can ask the infrastructure question by itself, and people are like, yeah, I'm in favor of building roads and bridges, but they are more concerned about the overall problems that the overall high level of spending are bringing.
Yeah, that's right. And, just to give you an idea, we scripted out when thinking about government spending, which of the following best describes your thinking. And to your point, Dallas, 58.4 simply say out of control, with 18.5 needed and being well spent. That's a very dismal percentage when you think about the scope of the infrastructure issue. Needs to increase for more government programs, only 10.9. Again, that fringe hard left. And then unsure, no opinion at 12.2.
Real quick, let's finish up. Unaffiliates are somewhat split on masks and vaccines. They were almost split dead down the middle of whether they thought vaccines ought to be mandated. A slight majority believe that government doesn't have the power to mandate masks, but at the same time, they are in favor of young school-age children being required to wear masks in school. So a mixed message on vaccines and masks from unaffiliated voters.
That's right. I think too, with that, when talking about the we actually phrased it when considering the COVID Delta variant. Do you think children under the age of 12 should be required to use a face mask in school? We had 48.8% say yes, 36.6% no, and 14.5% unsure. And I think that, we made the decision to put Delta variant, which I think probably increased that yes percentage significantly, but that's the reality that we're in with this Delta variant, which is proven to be much more contagious.
So overall, what is your, and we'll wrap up on this note, what is your overall impression of what is happening with the unaffiliated portion of the voting electorate in North Carolina?
I think that the Biden administration's promises that many suburban women, many unaffiliated, it's not just in North Carolina, but across the country, believed in this message of unification, of governing for all. And that's exactly what the administration has not done when thinking about immigration and busing COVID positive illegal immigrants across the country without the knowledge of state governments, to the mask mandates, to the mixed messaging coming from the CDC, the absolute catastrophe in Afghanistan, and lack of support for Israel. I think that the Republicans are in a very strong position to do really well in the midterms, not in just North Carolina, but I think we're going to take the House and Senate back nationally.